Let's record some team reviews. We'll jump up to the top. Today, I've got about 15 left in the queue. So let's try to get through them. We got one for Jacob Zander, who has had a few teams reviewed before. Jacob, it looks like your team is near the bottom of the board. Just on this keep trade cut value, we'll take a look at what your team looks like and talk about moves you can make. Right now, position by position, this is a 12-team Superflex start 9, full point per reception, half point to tight ends. Quarterbacks, you've got Cam Ward, Russ, no Jackson Dart, and Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, it's going to be like a 2 or a 1. Cam Ward may gain some value upswing before the start of the season. I've tracked that a lot with number 1 overall picks. As long as the news in camp is fine, you can expect a value rise in August as we get closer to the season. People just don't want to miss out. But not much here. It looks like you're rebuilding quite a bit. Running back Samson, Neal, Moss, LaQuint, Allen. I think I've looked at this team. So I'm going to go kind of quickly. Yes, I have looked at NFFL 6, or maybe it's not in a video, so I'll just send it out again. Sometimes these get submitted multiple times. It's just a bug in the site. So I'm either going crazy or we're talking about this team again. Samson, Neal, Moss, LaQuint, Allen, it's a 1 or a 0. We're missing plenty of spots here. So as we go through this team, I mean, we need to fill 9. We have 1, and I'm just going to count for next year because we're not contending this year. So we have 1 spot here and 1 empty. 2, 0, so 3, or 2 spots empty. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and Luther Burden kind of needing to start, or Keon Coleman needing to start. So you have multiple players that we need to replace next year, and not enough first-round picks to do it. So I'd probably send Jameson Williams out if you can get a first for him now. I'm not really looking to see him go much higher. My threshold for him would probably be like a first and a second. If you can get that, just cash out. People understand buy low, sell high, but when Jameson Williams is high right now, a little bit overrated. Like Detroit likely takes a step back from the number 2 offense last year. In yards per game, Detroit was number 2. So it's totally plausible that they would take a step back. The pie gets a little bit smaller, and Jameson Williams, his slice of that pie last year was not very big. So even if the offensive coordinator says he'll get more of a focus, he'll get a larger percent of a smaller set of yards. So 22 as a wide receiver, he's behind Jordan Addison, and Jordan Addison has just always been better. So if you could get a first for him now and get that rebuild starting to roll again, I'd be open to if you could get 2 firsts for Cam Ward, depending on how high he goes up. Like, we're looking to pull out first-round picks. And with a team like this, I don't know that anyone on this team is going to be on the team when you're contending. So be open to it in that mindset. And Njoku and Kincaid can go. We're hoping to see if Fannin produces. Zach Ertz should probably be able to get you a 3rd or 4th-round pick from someone who's contending and needs tight end. If that doesn't happen in your league, you just hold him. But this is still sell, sell, sell. Any one of these guys, Samson, Neal, LaQuint, Allen, if you can get a higher pick than you used on them, like, you call that a win and you cash out and move on. Typically what we're looking for is a mix of players worth at least a first and then some older veterans worth less than a first for a contending team right now. So players less than a first for a contending team right now, that would be like Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. That's kind of how you want to build a contender. So that would mean all of this stuff is probably going to go. If Jalen McMillan has a good start to the season, we're sending him out. If Coleman and Leggett start going, I would just be looking to reset and get as many firsts as I can. That's what I would do. We'll mark that one done because I think I've already looked at it. 195, failing to get rosters from Sleeper. Yeah, so maybe something has gone wrong with that league. I'll write down a note. Okay, so I'll come back to that after the video. Next one, Marvin's Room. Marvin's Room. Did we lose? Who is Marvin's Room? Have I looked at this before and gone through the same problem? Possibly. Bruh Boys Dynasty, youngest and most turned. Top of the board from Ethan. Top of the board and Tuya. This league is a 10 team, Superflex, start 10, PPR, no tight end premium. How are we looking? Top of the board on value, although this doesn't matter very much. This is all pretty tight. And of this 10, I could expect any 6 to make the playoffs, depending on how this value is set up. So we'll talk about position by position, where your value is, where your strengths and weaknesses are, and how we can tweak the value of the team, rearrange it to get you contending more. Quarterbacks, Hurts, Stroud, Cam Ward, Geno. This is too many. There's too many quarterbacks. So on value and flexibility, we'll call this like a really strong 4. Like CJ Stroud has a lot of flexibility to become other value in your roster. Like QB 11 here, this is just based, so this would be keep trade cut rankings as of recently, and it's just based on his age. He's going to be 24 this season, and people think he can be the next Joe Burrow, but that hasn't happened. He's been QB 11 and QB 18 in his career, and it's really just hype and promise of a young player that brings his value up. For example, CJ Stroud, in his 2 years as a starter, has never finished better than Brock Purdy, but people think they would be up-tiering from Purdy to Stroud. Usually with an up tier, you want more points. So I don't see how it would be an up tier. That's a long way to say we've got a lot of value here, and the production hasn't really hit that value level. Cam Ward's a good option for a value riser, and Jalen Hurts should probably be QB4 in Dynasty ahead of Joe Burrow. Rushing is just worth so much. Running backs, Achane, Hampton, Jacobs, really strong 4. Really, really, really good options here. Achane, we're hoping Marion Hampton develops. Almost every first-round rookie or running back taken in the first round of the NFL draft does hit eventually in year 1 or year 2, so I feel great with Hampton. And Josh Jacobs probably has at least 1 year left. And then we have some Trey Benson, dart throw, Tyrone Tracy, probably for maybe some of this year, maybe 1 more year. Kind of depends on what happens with the Giants coaching staff. If you could sell Tyrone, I probably just would. Wide receivers, Nico, Wilson, Tet, Jameson, Jalen Noel. Okay, I think this is a start 10. So for a start 10, it's a little thin to me, or maybe a little more thin than kind of the hype of these names, especially Jameson Williams. I talk about him a lot. So I'm going to call this a 3, maybe a really, really strong 3, though, with Nico and Garrett and the upside of Tet. Tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, Mason Taylor, Brenton Strange. It's like a 2. We have, I guess, a starter in Kincaid who is probably still somehow overvalued. I don't know how his value keeps holding. He hasn't really produced that much. And he's still thought of as tight end 10. Okay. I don't know that I see it. I'd rather have a cheaper option than Kincaid and move that value somewhere else. So let's talk about your team, because you're probably contending this year and contending for many years. You have this set up with a lot of youth and probably not enough veterans. Like you have 2 firsts next year, 2 seconds in 27. So you have a little bit more future value than every other team here. I think it's time to start pulling some of that and just let's make sure we win. You have a ton of youth. We're not really losing anyone. I think it's really likely that we'll lose some value in Stroud this year if he doesn't. I mean, I guess at this point it would be hard for me to tell because his value has seemed so out of whack to me over the past couple of years. But if he doesn't hit as a top quarterback, when are people going to start saying he's no different than Jordan Love? He's no different than Trevor Lawrence. He's no different than Brock Purdy. I don't know when people are going to start changing to that, which is basically what he is. He scores the same as Love. He scores the same as Purdy. He scores the same as Lawrence. If Tua is healthy, he will score the same. He's that instead of QB 11. So that's probably the first place I would look to pull value and just down tier to Dak Prescott. When Dak Prescott's healthy, he outscores CJ Stroud by a lot. Or you could down tier to Baker. Baker's playing fine. He outscores Stroud by quite a bit. Last offseason, when CJ Stroud was considered a top 5 dynasty asset, I just pulled up the stats and he was the same as Baker Mayfield. But Baker, because he's old, was really low value. Stroud, because he was young, was really high value. When you win the championship, they don't check the age of your players. Just go get the production. You have a young up-and-coming quarterback, and you have enough firsts that if Cam doesn't hit and you're worried about Baker's age, you can replace that in the coming years. So that's what first thing I would look at doing. Wide receivers, I would look to take Jameson Williams and a first and see how high up the board I can go. If you can get to Drake London, amazing. You already have Nico Collins. I would be looking at wide receiver 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and going down the board and seeing how high you can get with Jameson Williams. His value is just higher than his production or a realistic outlook for his production. Wide receiver 22, I say this and every time I see him, that's higher than Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison is younger and has always been better than Jameson Williams. So I don't know why we would think it's flipping or changing. There's not that much happening to Detroit that would make me think their offense would get better and he would be a bigger part of it. Enough that he would go over those guys. Like, we understand buy low, sell high, but when the player's value is high, no one wants to sell. Except for me. I would sell Jameson Williams everywhere I had him. And that's the move I would look to make. A first-round pick and Jameson to see how high at receiver I could go. Or a first-round pick and Stroud and see how high of a receiver paired with Dak I could go. This is just going to be loose values, but if you went Dak and Jameson Williams, like, what do you need to add to get up to Jamar? See what the guy says. See what he's open to. That's the conversation I would start having. Same thing with Baker. It's not likely that you get that deal, but I'm coming to these guys' teams and saying, do you want CJ Stroud, Jameson Williams, a first? Where does that get me for Baker and a player? Let's look at the rest of your team and see if anything else jumps out. If anybody believes in Dalton Kincaid, just pivot. That's what I would do. If I could get Travis Kelce, he's going to play this year. This guy's got Warren Kraft. He would probably give you Kelce for nothing. Kelce was a top 6 tight end last year. He's just old. Like, he'll very likely that Travis Kelce outproduces Dalton Kincaid this year, and then you just need to replace him next year, or you just hold Kincaid and see what happens. I would also look for Zach Ertz. I think he was tight end 7 last year. And with the tight end age, I don't really care. Like 33 versus 34. Some tight ends just play a long time and produce at a decent rate. Zach Ertz had a good role in this passing offense. I don't really expect that to change that much. That's someone I would target. Your team could also just use, like, if you could convert Deebo Samuel and Jalen Noel up tiered into some picks, like a second or a third, and then use that in a package to go get Mike Evans. If you can't up tier from Jameson Williams, I would look to pair a pick with Jameson Williams and do the swap. Do a pick up tier with Jameson Williams while you player value down tier to Devontae Adams or Mike Evans. So add a 27 third and, run the numbers on a calculator. That's what a trade calculator is decent for. Getting it within the range where you're sending Jameson Williams and a third and coming away with Mike Evans and a first. Or Jameson Williams and a second if you need to. And you talk through the guy and see what it takes to make that happen. So same thing for Devontae Adams. I just want locked in production from this spot. Like, we have Collins, Wilson, Ted McMillan's our upside guy. I don't need to gamble that. It's just a bad bet. I don't need to gamble that Jameson Williams explodes and they stop going to Amon-Ra as much and the offense runs through him. Like, I'll let someone else take that bet and cash out for locked in production. Tyrone Tracy can go in any of those deals if that's what pushes it over the edge. Probably the same thing with Trey Benson. And then if you're really worried about running back depth, you could get like James Conner, Alvin Kamara. Your team's ready to go. So some of this youth upside, we should just send away, let someone else take the risk on it and just get locked in production and go for the championship. We'll call that one done. The autocratic rulers of South Estonia, the Shepherd. mcireland, another one coming through. This is a 10-team, 1 quarterback. Start 10, half PPR, full point tight end premium. So with this column, it does not change based on how many quarterbacks you start. So the numbers here are all going to be a little askew based on what quarterbacks you have, how many quarterbacks you have. So we're really going to ignore this. It's tight at the top between 111 to 100, and you're in that mix, so you're probably a playoff contender. Let's look at your team. Got Stroud and Prescott. I've been talking about Stroud a lot. I'd probably roll with Prescott here and see what else we could do with CJ Stroud. And it looks like this is a really deep roster. This is probably like a 2 or a 3. You have enough stuff to make some flexibility. You should have good production from Dak Prescott if he's healthy. And maybe this is the year CJ Stroud breaks out. I'm not betting on it. I'd rather someone else bet on it, but maybe it is. Running backs. Barkley, Henderson, Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Jordan Mason. You got a lot of good options here, a lot of upside. I'm going to call this like a week 4. So we call this like a 2, a 4. Neighbors. Receivers is Neighbors, McConkey, A.J. Brown, Travis Hunter, Cortland Sutton, Joshua Palmer, Dante Thornton, Xavier Restrepo, Michael Wilson. This feels like a 4 as well. And then tight ends, Hawkinson, Kelsey, Waller. This is just some upside. Gunnar Helm, rookie with some upside, I guess. Will Disley and Tyler Conklin. I like having that pairing from the Chargers. Greg Roman likes a tight end in his offense. And you have a full point tight end premium. So this is going to be probably a 3. So what do we say? Like 2, 4, 4, 3. You're in the mix. You're contending this year. There's not too much that would stop me from saying you're contending probably next year. So what moves can we make? Probably I would just try to pivot from Stroud. I say this most of the time that I see him on a team. You already have Dak, but Dak is probably going to outscore Stroud, and there's probably going to be weeks where you're thinking, I should start CJ Stroud because he's young, he has more value, but he just doesn't regularly outscore Dak. So if you could cash out that value now, get a more decent backup or a more backup tier guy in a 1 quarterback league, it's going to be hard to get good value from these guys, which is why I don't particularly like 1 quarterback leagues. But if you could move Stroud to up tier at any sort of receiver, I would. We don't really need to make moves at running back. I think you can see that unless Jordan Mason really hits, and he's already kind of 26 and has had a career of not hitting, or unless Travis Etienne bounces back, we may need to replace 2 guys after this year. Like, it's totally plausible that Saquon and Josh Jacobs both go into steep decline after this year. They're both old, and that can happen or old enough at running back, and that can happen really any time after 27. So we should be preparing for what happens next. But with this team, I'd probably hold Saquon and try to contend. At wide receivers, let's count out because we got to get to start 10. There may be a kicker and a defense, but I'm going to count this out, and you let me know, or you can tweak the advice as we go through it. So we'll start Dak for 1, Hawkinson for 2. There's a full tight end premium, so we're probably starting Kelsey for 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So when we're at 10, I'm gonna start looking to, because the league is more shallow, like you just want the better players. So I'm gonna start up tiering guys where I can. If I need to package picks with players to get from, it would be hard to get anything from these wide receiver 85, 87, 89 guys. But Josh Palmer, Cortland Sutton, if I can start to up tier from those guys, I would consider it. Cortland Sutton's a tough one because he's kind of like just a lower producing A.J. Brown. He's a veteran guy. He'll be the 30 this year. It's hard to get good value based on the production you would get from him. But if someone's going to pay you quite a bit for Sutton and you can throw a pick and come away with a much better piece, I probably would, because he's not starting that often for you. A.J. Brown's probably on this team until he retires. This team is ready to go. It doesn't need a ton of moves. I like the Hockenson, Kelsey, and the Chargers guys. Nothing really big is jumping out. I think you're just kind of set to go for it. Quarterback is where you could use an upgrade. I mean, if someone would view CJ Stroud very highly and you could move a first with Stroud to get a real good quarterback, I would. But I think you're fine with the Dak Prescott production. He'll just have low value in the market with good production. When he finishes a year, he's top 12 of just always in his career. If he doesn't get injured, he finishes as a top 12 quarterback, sometimes top 6. So I would just be looking to roll with Dak. ToshiGang, Fight Club. ToshiGang, third on the board in rank, but this is a 1 quarterback league. So in a 1 quarterback league, these numbers mean even less, because on my site, it's only looking at 2 quarterback values. So while this is the cumulative keep trade cut score, we don't care about it as much, especially on a 1 quarterback league where the quarterback values here are just going to be pushing this number up way higher because it's assuming it's a 2 quarterback league, and it's not. So we'll talk about your team position by position. We'll look at where you're strong, where you're weak. We'll look at your outlook for contending, and then we'll talk about moves you can make. Start 9. This website does not see if you start a kicker and a defense, so I'll count out 9 guys and get a gauge, but you can tweak the advice as needed. The fewer players that are not a defense and kicker that you start, the more high-end pieces you want. So that's how you would tweak this, any sort of advice. So like Bijan becomes more valuable if you're only starting 8 players and a defense, or only starting 7 and a kicker and a defense. So let's take a look at your quarterbacks. You've got Stroud, Purdy, Fields. This is probably like a 2. You have 2 options that should be around for years. Fields, realistically, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the Jets next year. He signed a 2-year deal and they can get out of it after 1 year. But I would expect him to start every game this year. So you probably, between Brock and Fields, have a top 12 quarterback. And then CJ Stroud still holds value with the hope that he breaks out. Sometimes the breakout doesn't ever happen. So not looking amazing at quarterback, kind of just replacement level. Running backs, Bijan, Judkins, Henry, Spears, Marks. Okay, I mean, Woody Marks, this value will rise after news about Joe Mixon. He'll be missing some time. But Bijan, Judkins, Henry, like, you're going to have really good production for the first couple. You're going to have good production this year, depending on if Derrick Henry starts showing signs of age. You'll need to survive the Judkins suspension. But you have 3 guys here, and then Tajay Spears and possibly Woody Marks. This feels okay. This was probably a 1 or a 2, and this is probably a 4 for production and flexibility for moves. Wide receivers, Nico Collins, T. Higgins, Ricky Pearsall, Mike Evans, Jerry Jeudy, Xavier Legette. It's like a strong 2. It's not like Nico Collins may be amazing, but T. Higgins, I mean, I guess wide receiver 18 is about right-ish. If we'll talk about T. Higgins more in moves you can make. This is okay. Nico Collins, Higgins has a lot of flexibility to move. Ricky Pearsall is a value riser. Mike Evans should still give you good production, similar with Jerry Jeudy. And then Legette and Coker possibly go up in value from 59 and 66, depending on how the offense looks this year. But I don't know that they're going to be major contributors for this team. George Kittle, totally fine. Probably a top option at tight end. You guys don't have any sort of tight end premium, but I would expect him to. I'm not going to be surprised if he's the number 1 tight end in points per game this year. So we're feeling good here. What did we say? Like 4 at tight end. So maybe 2, 4. This is like a week 3, 4. This, you can contend this year. And there's not a lot of stuff falling off. I think Justin Fields might be your best quarterback for this year, and that might disappear. So it'll be hard, but we'll talk about moves now. And it'll be hard, but I would move CJ Stroud. Get whatever you can for him. Not down, not. You don't want to split him into worse parts. You kind of want to sell him 1-to-1 or in a package where you're getting his full value out in another player. I don't want to sell Stroud for like a second in Jameson Williams or something like that, where you're getting the worst piece in it. I just want Stroud out of here. You've got guys that are going to produce. Let's get this production into another column. Ricky Pearsall, we hope, goes up in value this year, or goes up as training camp continues and it's just kind of Pearsall and Jennings at wide receiver. The expectation now, as of July 27th, is that Pearsall should come off the pup soon. If he doesn't late into August, I'm worried. Otherwise, I think he's still just a value riser once he's playing. And news reports say that he's practicing fine. He doesn't even have to play a game in the NFL for this value to rise. He just needs to report and be healthy in camp. T. Higgins is an option to move. When the analysis for a team like the Bengals is they're going to have to throw, like, no, they're not. They changed their defensive coordinator. They drafted a bunch of defensive players. They may have had issues with their first-round picks contract, but they knew they needed defense. They went and got defense. That guy's now signed. Things are going to change. And in fantasy, we just don't track that stuff and predict it. Most people don't. I mean, I am. I'm expecting that defense to kind of just regress back to average. So are the Bengals going to need to score 35, 38 points a game to win? I don't think so. I don't know that. So I'm not going to use that for analysis to keep a guy propped up pretty high. Every once in a while, there's a wide receiver 2 that finishes top 12 and then kind of fades back into the mix of wide receiver 2s. And right now, that's T. Higgins. So if you could sell him at this height, this is what it looks like to sell high. So if you could take T. Higgins and CJ Stroud and move way up at wide receiver, I don't need a third quarterback. We're starting one. You've got Fields and Purdy. That's fine. I've heard people say, should I up tier from CJ Stroud to Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy just always outscores CJ Stroud. Of the 2 years they've both been starters, Purdy's been ahead comfortably both years. So it's not an up tier. This is just like a bad community ranking. If you think Stroud is better than Purdy, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I care about fantasy points, and Purdy gets more of them. That's first option. Let's scan for any other options to make. You've got a solid veteran option. We're hoping for Pearsall to break out. Jerry Jeudy's kind of going to be good. Like, I think we roll with what we've got here. You can probably make the playoffs, and we see what happens. That's where I'm at. I don't know that this is a slam dunk championship contender, but it's definitely a contender. So I would ride it this year. Here is a review for Jcolbo in Dynasty D-Gens. Where are you? You're 4th on the list. This is a 12-team Superflex Start 10. Full point PPR, half point tight end premium. That's what the boom bust leagues are. You're 4th on the board in cumulative keep trade cut value, but this is really just on the site to try to get the best team at the top and try to put the worst team at the bottom and sort them, sort of. So we're not going to look into this too much. We're not going to care about it too much. I'll call out when I think guys are undervalued or overvalued, and that can give us an idea. But what we're going to do is look at your team position by position, give each one a ranking. We try to figure out kind of what team you have, what your contending outlook is, and then some moves that you can make to help you contend more often, either this year, next year, or so on. Quarterbacks: Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Tyler Shuck, Daniel Jones. I like this room. This is probably a really good 3 to a really weak 4. Like Jordan Love, he's listed as QB 12. That would put him, I think Stroud is QB 11. They're like the same exact guy to me. They're both pocket passers, and they should both be fine. Jordan Love and Stroud, I'm predicting that they're both a little bit better than last year. Stroud hurt his knee. The wide receivers there are really bad. The offense is good. Matt LaFleur's a good coach, and that kind of masks just how bad Dontavian Wicks was, how often Jaden Reed could just disappear, and that'll hurt Jordan Love. Like, I don't know that their plan was to run with Josh Jacobs as much as they did. I think they just didn't really have receivers. So I totally think Love is great, a little bit undervalued. Lamar Jackson could easily be QB1 this year. Running backs. So what did I say? Like a week 4, we'll call it. Running backs. Gibbs, Irving, Blue. This is probably 3. I'd just like a third option to bump it into a 4. And I don't know what Bucky Irving is going to be this year or how a new coordinator in Tampa will use him. This overall dynasty ranking of running back 7 for Irving feels fine. I don't feel confident that he's going to be amazing again, but I'm totally open that he could be. So you've got a solid 2 and then nothing behind it. Jaden Blue could have the role in Dallas. We have a lot of hopes and dreams. Like Woody Marks could take on a much larger role with the changes and injuries in Houston, but we don't know. So this is okay. What do we say? Like 4-3, wide receivers, JSN, Jalen Waddle, Luther Burden, Ayuk, Cortland Sutton, Trey Harris. Okay, we're missing some pieces here if we have to start 10. And then tight ends, George Kittle, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. This is probably a 3, mostly just Kittle doing the heavy lifting, and it would be a 4 if Kittle were younger. But we've got a couple years left of Kittle. So the team's decently rounded. We have enough pieces to contend. Like if we fill out a starting 10, it's Lamar and Love 2, Kittle 3, possibly Ertz when I looked at your receivers. So we'll stick with 3 and we'll go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ertz is 10. Like it does get a little bit weak, and Lamar's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting for this team. So where can we get you over the hump? I mean, the receivers feels weak when we're counting out starters. Like JSN is good. Jalen Waddle, I'm predicting the bounce back. Luther Burden is still not participating in training camp within the first week. He's a second-round receiver, or a second-round pick in the NFL draft receiver. Like that doesn't break out that often. You've got that with Trey Harris. I'd be looking to probably take some of these seconds and just add in, could you get Mike Evans for 2 seconds? Could you get Devontae Adams on this team to fill out your starting roster with good producing pieces? We'll see if Luther Burden breaks out. We'll see if Brandon Ayuk plays this year. Cortland Sutton's a decent veteran for this team, but I think we just want one more piece here to help fill out a starting 10 and let Lamar do a lot of the heavy lifting for this team. Gibbs do a lot of the heavy lifting for this team. If you can't move seconds to get a veteran, my next option would be, can you down tier from Gibbs to like Achane and get more value? You could probably get a first out of that deal, possibly more. So either do like Gibbs and Burden and come away with Achane and a receiver. Because Achane has RB1 upside. This guy's got Tet. He's got Puka. You could probably come away with a pretty good piece making that swap. This guy thinks he's jumping up and gaining a lot of production. Like Gibbs and Achane, when Tua was healthy, did the same thing. They had the same production. There's always the risk that Tua misses time. But remember last year when Tua missed time, it wasn't a backup quarterback that they went to. They signed a practice squad player off of the Ravens and were starting him 10 days later. He didn't know the offense. He's not actually a very good player. It was Tyler Huntley, I think, from the Ravens. So he did make the Pro Bowl one year when Lamar missed time. Like he's an okay quarterback, and then the Ravens thought enough of him to just keep him on practice squad. He couldn't even make their roster. That's who was starting when Achane had his worst stretch of the season. Otherwise, he was as good as Jahmyr Gibbs. So you could make a production lateral move, with a slight risk, and then just add more value into your starting lineup each week. Your team is looking for trades that improve your starting lineup production this year. Because you could go for the championship. Like you're gonna make the playoffs barring extreme issues. So I would be looking to get production into this lineup. The most obvious places I see to do that is just these seconds and pulling value out of Jahmyr Gibbs. Like you're not going to get value out of Ayuk. You're not going to get great value from Sutton. If you could move Trey Harris and Jalen Noel and come away with Mike Evans and Devontae Adams, that would be a great win to me. Trey Harris is a second round pick from the NFL draft. Like those guys don't hit that often. And you're going for the championships. Like even if that does work out for the other guy and you get good production of Devontae Adams or from Devontae Adams or Mike Evans, that's a fine trade because you're trying to win. You're trying to get money, not have a young player that you hope breaks out. So if anybody likes any of these guys, let's start trying to up tier and roll that snowball and get another piece into your wide receiver room. That's the goals I would have for that team. We will move on to the next one. Any Given Sunday from tmilner. This is a 12-team Superflex start, 10 half point per reception, half point tight end premium. Milner is in the middle of the board. This looks like a really tight spread of value. Like this is often what a startup looks like when it's done. So if I've guessed that, let me know in the YouTube comments. But what I mean to say is 10,000 value on Keep Trade Cut, it's like nothing. It could just be someone has too many quarterbacks. Someone has anything. So we're going to heavily ignore this ranking. It's just on the site to try to sort them. And here, this league could finish anyway. So we're going to look at your positions and talk about them. Quarterbacks, you've got Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, Matthew Stafford. This is probably a good 2. Like Murray's probably a top 12 quarterback this year in a 12-team, and that's good in a 12-team league. Bryce Young is probably a good borderline QB1, maybe finishes around QB 14, 15 this year, or higher. He was looking good at the end of the year. There's a real chance he's just now in that mix of Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, like decent pocket passers. He just had a rough start to his career. You've got Stafford, who can probably fill in 1 to 2 weeks for you. This feels okay. Not a lot of room to make moves, so I'll give it a really good 2. I may have already said a number. I'm going to stick with 2. Running backs, Bijan, Walker, and nothing else. A couple dart throws. So this is probably a 3. Like we need to start 10 guys total, and we're going to end up starting Jalen Warren some weeks. Especially if Ken Walker is injured again. This feels like a weak spot. Wide receivers, Amon-Ra, Tet, Godwin, Trey Harris, Pat Bryant, Demario Douglas. This is like a 2 to me. Amon-Ra is going to get you just most of that 2. The upside of Tet later in the year, after he develops a bit as a rookie, will help. Chris Godwin, we're not sure what his status is for the start of the year. And then Trey Harris, a second-round NFL pick. Pat Bryant, kind of a dart throw. Demario Douglas, kind of a dart throw. Hopefully you have enough guys here. Hopefully. Tight ends, George Kittle, Mason Taylor, Brenton Strange. So we feel great. George Kittle's really good. This is probably a 3 or a 4 just on Kittle. And then you have some options that could develop behind him. But we may need to be replacing Kittle in a couple years. So how does this team feel? Like we got to get to 10. So we're looking at Murray Young is 2, Kittle is 3, Bijan Walker is 4, 5, 6, 7. Then we're looking at 8, 9, 10 and saying, where are we getting 8, 9, 10 to fill out a starting lineup? Like Godwin might miss time. Trey Harris might not develop that quickly. Like, hopefully for you, he's good from the beginning. Plays outside receiver, kind of takes over some of that Quentin Johnston role, gets deep balls and allows this offense to pass more. That's not a bet I want to make going into the year, or a bet I want on a contending team. So it feels like we're in kind of a reload where we're not going to be starting 10 decent guys. What it looks like and what I would do is if I could move Trey Harris in a second and just get a veteran option in here. Can I get Mike Evans? Can I get the last year of Devontae Adams? Start filling out that 10. Can I move Jalen Warren and a second and get Alvin Kamara and get a strong 10? You can get cheap production. Like, what would it take to get Jacoby Myers on this team? We're looking to just fill out the last of these spots because the rest of your team can go. Like, Bijan can go, Amon-Ra can go. Not go off your team. Like, they can carry you. They can get this team going to the playoffs. We just need to supplement it with some vets. So it's not really going all in to take extra thirds, an extra second, and try to get more production on here, because this team could make the playoffs this year. You'll just have to add some veterans that'll score you points for cheap. So I named some options. I'm scanning my list for other ones. Aaron Jones could be really cheap and would, in those weeks, hopefully do much better than Jalen Warren, or just waiting to see if Jaden Blue or Kyle Monangai take on bigger roles. Those are spots I would look. If it's not working early, though, it's time to start going for 2026 restock. And players that would go in that situation, like, I might hold George Kittle. I would be open to down tier from Bijan. Like, we're not down tiering far, but you could probably get a lot on top of Achane, on top of Bucky Irving, on top of any of the rookies right now. Hampton, Caleb Johnson, if he looks good to start the year, Henderson, depending on the situation with Judkins. Let's get a stronger set of firsts and build out a starting 10. Because when you're rebuilding, you want to build out and then up. And you've got a few up pieces like Bijan, Amon-Ra, but you don't have enough out. You don't have a full starting 10. So if I can get some firsts for next year to start supplementing that with draft picks in the first round and then using seconds to up tier existing players, that's what I would look to do. You're kind of just playing this year by ear. If your team looks good to start, I would just roll with the vets that you picked up and see what happens in the playoffs. Next review, tmilner again. Nico, please. Top of the board, 10 team, Superflex, start 11, PPR. We talked about this column, but you're near the top. Let's take a look at your team. So, with keep trade cut value, this is just the community's sentiments on players. So we just looked at some of your teams for you. We'll go position by position. You've got the two guys I dislike the most at their value. Drake May, CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud in his rookie year was QB 11, right in that range. And people thought, man, he's going to take the next step forward. And it didn't happen. It went way back. He was QB 18 last year. Like, he wasn't good. He could be good. I'm not saying he won't, but people just kind of hold on to this hype that CJ Stroud is the next Joe Burrow. He's Brock Purdy. He's Jordan Love. He's Trevor Lawrence. He's a QB1 in terms of top 12. This is a 10-team league, so that hurts you even more. That's how I feel about Stroud. Drake May, at this price at QB7, and his value is different in each league. This is community ranking. He might break out. He might be the next Josh Allen. It's not likely. There usually isn't a next Josh Allen. There aren't a lot of next Tom Brady's. There aren't a lot of next Aaron Rodger's. There's a lot of guys that we think might be. Caleb Williams might be the next great guy. He's probably not. He's probably not the next Patrick Mahomes. And Drake May is listed at QB7. If you're not tracking this stuff, QB7 and QB6, and Drake May flips day to day, depending on what day you look at community rankings. He's flipping with Patrick Mahomes. Like, Patrick Mahomes still has MVP upside. I don't know that I see it in Drake May on the current Patriots. So if you could get this price now and just get better production, that's what I would do with both Drake May and CJ Stroud. These guys are just the hallmarks of, like, the community likes them. They might break out, but there are guys that are already just out producing them for cheaper. So this is like a strong 2. You have a lot of options. You have good flexibility. But in terms of production, the production is not amazing. Like, in your mind, you probably think Drake May and CJ Stroud are better than Bryce Young. They weren't really last year. They're the same. There's room to make a lot of moves here because he's ranked as QB7. Running backs, Travion Henderson, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey. 3 good options, and then Ramondre might start a week for you. Garendo may need to fill in for McCaffrey. Jalen Warren can get you a few points each week if you just need a bye week fill-in. This feels like a 3. Wide receivers, Puka, Collins, JSN, T. Higgins, Luther Burden, Calvin Ridley, Marvin Mims. This feels like a 4. You got 2 really good options in Puka and Nico. JSN, a good rising option. T. Higgins is probably at the height of his value. Luther Burden, people are really hyped on him to break out and be the special piece for Ben Johnson. I'm not sure I believe it. There's been a lot of, like, young second-round hype guys over the years, so I don't get too excited and believe hype like that. It could definitely happen, but it's not a bet I'm looking to make a lot of times. Calvin Ridley, like, what if Cam Ward is just good and Calvin Ridley's the best option? He's probably going to outscore wide receiver 53. I mean, he's probably going to be pretty good for 1 to 2 more years. His value is just because he's old. Marvin Mims may grow in his role in his second or third year in Denver. He's a good piece to hold. He's definitely a hold at wide receiver 60. Tight ends, Tyler Warren, Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson, Jonnu Smith. Like, I think you've got Jake Ferguson to lock you down this year. I say this a lot about the rookie tight ends. We've had Bowers, Laporta, and then no rookie tight ends were great in their first year. Kyle Pitts was okay. So it's good you have Jake Ferguson to help get you through the year. I don't know if Tyler Warren breaks out, but you have enough value and enough team to hold Tyler Warren. There's a lot of teams that just can't afford to waste a year waiting to see what happens with him. Your team feels good. Like, you're probably contending this year. So taking your team moves I would make. Can I take Drake May and T. Higgins and come away with Baker Mayfield and Drake London? Punch that into a calculator. Like, trade calculators are flawed, but a trade like that is something a trade calculator is good for. 2 pieces on each side within value ranges of each other. Like, take a look and see what that looks like. Mayfield and London for May and Higgins, or Stroud and Higgins. That's a move I would be thrilled to make because you're going to get more production at quarterback and more production at receiver, and you're just selling some of the hype. T. Higgins is the ultimate. This is what sell high looks like. In fantasy, people generally understand the idea, buy low, sell high. But when they get a guy who's high, they don't want to sell. Like, T. Higgins is at the top of probably what his value is. With any of those deals, if you want to take one of these extra firsts, send Stroud, Higgins, come away with Dak, a great receiver, and throw in a first to get all the way up to, you already have Puka, but can you get up to Amon-Ra? Can you get up to Brian Thomas Jr.? And come away with a decent producing quarterback? Like, that can get a lot of points into your lineup this year. With this team, I don't want to have too many what-if bets. Like you have Luther Burden, that's a what if bet. You have Tyler Warren, that's a what if bet. Like what if they're great and my team just grows? I don't want to have too many of those. I do want more options of just let's brute force get points. Let's go get the last year of Mike Evans. Let's go get Devontae Adams and just get points on this team. McCaffrey is a good what if bet, or a good example of one. I don't know that we need 3 on here. Drake May is kind of a what if bet that you already have to pay as though it's hit. Like what if Drake May is great and he's the QB7 and the only value you gain is none. Like you need him to break out just to get back to the current value he holds. So when that's true of a situation, I just want to move on from a guy. Tyler Warren is more likely, I think, to break out and meet this value, but it's similar. Like he's tight end 4 right now, and this will probably dip as he doesn't do very much as a rookie. So you're going to have, if you want to keep Warren, you have to understand you're going to eat a value hit if he doesn't produce, and then you hope that the breakout happens. But you can afford a couple of them. You can afford McCaffrey and Warren. You can afford Burden and Warren. You can afford May and Warren. But we should start cycling some of these guys into just, we don't need to ask what if. We just have Devontae Adams. We just have Mike Evans. If you could get A.J. Brown on this team from some moves like Burden and a first, could you just get A.J. Brown and win the championship? Those are the types of moves I would look for. Nico, please is done. I can't say that. I don't know what that would be, but this is the review. 12-team, 1 quarterback, start 10. So in a 1 quarterback league, the site is not designed to handle it. We're going to talk through your team. It's just this value column is designed around 2 quarterbacks, so we're going to heavily ignore this. And this league feels pretty close in value anyway. So we'll talk about your team. We'll see how we feel. We'll talk about your outlook for contending and some moves you can make. Quarterbacks, you got Bo Nix and Justin Herbert. It would be hard to move one of them in a 1 quarterback league, but you got 2 good options here. I think Justin Herbert is more talented than Bo Nix, but I think Bo Nix's play style leads to more fantasy points. So that's kind of a pick your option. Bo Nix with a lot of short passing and running will have high completion percentage. He's not taking massive risks. Like he could be fine. People think he's young. He's like not that much younger than Justin Herbert. So this is going to be a 3 in terms of quarterback in a 1 QB league, but you have flexibility to make some moves. Running backs, we have Chase Brown, Christian McCaffrey, Cam Scatabo. This feels risky to me. I mean, Chase Brown at running back 13 seems fine. McCaffrey is, it's just a risk. He's 29, could be done after this year, could not play most of this year. So this is probably a 3. This feels like a 2 to me, with no real option behind these guys. It could be great. Like we could have, so I'll call this a 3. We'll go 3-3. Wide receivers is Amon-Ra, Rashee Rice, Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy. When I'm looking at the amount of players you have, this start 10 is starting to look like it might be like IDPs or kicker and defense. You take my advice and tweak it to what your league is. Right now, this site is free and it is not really tailored towards IDPs, kickers, defense. It's not really even tailored to 1 quarterbacks with the way that the value is shown. But I'll do my best to give you advice on where I see these players. So depending on how many defenses or other players you're starting, I'd be looking to get more high-end options here. Like Devonta Smith at wide receiver 20, he's probably going to give you 14-ish points per game. What is this, PPR? Yeah. I'm not sure this team is contending. So can we move Bo Nix and get some resets for picks? Can we move either one of these guys? You don't really need 2 starter tier options in a 1 quarterback league. You'd like to have 1 and then a backup that is starting 1 time for you. Can we move, I don't know that Christian McCaffrey, even if he's amazing carries this team through. If he's great, you feel like you have a good team, but that's a pretty high risk to just be good. So if we could move McCaffrey and start the process of building for next year, that's probably what I would be doing. Same thing with Devonta Smith. I would hold Rice through the suspension. And then if I could get anything for Jack Bash, I'm not really looking for breakouts from second, third round NFL picks. The way I would handle that is if you drafted him with a second and you can get a late first for him at any point, I would probably take that. With this team, we're probably looking for some value risers. I would take the risk on Xavier Worthy. If you could get Worthy for like Devonta Smith for Worthy plus, like Worthy in a second, Worthy and some extra on top, I would do that. I would do that right now. I just think Xavier Worthy has a lot of room to go up in value. Same thing with Ricky Pearsall. You could take the risk on Chris Olave. So this is just transitioning pieces into value risers. If you don't feel like this team has a realistic shot to make the playoffs, then you want all of the value that you have working for you for next year. So I'd be fine moving Chase Brown to be getting firsts or players that should rise in value. And that does not mean Jack Bash level players. Like anyone that went in the second round of a rookie draft could hit and could be good, but they're not good value rise bets, because if they don't hit, they become guys like Jalen Polk, Adonai Mitchell. They don't have any value right now. They were second round rookie picks last year. They didn't really hit. Now it's gone. So you want to do what you can to get into firsts or players that have the pedigree to continue to rise. Like Xavier Legette could rise in value this year. That's lower down my list of priority value riser targets, but that would be an option. If there's a suspension for Jordan Addison, I would buy the suspension dip. I would buy a suspension dip on Quinshon Judkins on this team. We're looking for guys that you can buy low, hold through the year, and see their value rise. We'll mark that one done. Raid 6 team. I know you submitted this one to me. Man, I'm going to have no idea how to help you on this. I think you said you start 3 of each guy. So I'll give you my general thoughts. Like Drake May's got to go. You've been on my streams. You've heard me talk about Drake May. I'm just not a believer. You would need him to, we're hoping for a Drake May breakout, but at QB7 price, you need him to break out just to return value. That's the short version of what I think of him. I really like Achane. I like Chase Brown. Christian McCaffrey seems like a good bet. Joe Mixon news is bad for you. I guess with this, I'm just going through your players and saying, which ones do I like at their value? Which ones do I not? Here's the perfect example. Jameson Williams at wide receiver 22 ahead of Jordan Addison. I've said this probably a dozen times, and I say it on every one of these roster review videos. How is Jameson Williams ahead of Jordan Addison? Jordan Addison is younger, and every year of his career has been better than Jameson Williams. But now Jameson Williams should be better? That's just community being stupid. And this is what sell high looks like. So we understand buy low, sell high. This is a player that you sell high. Like, he's not better than Jordan Addison. He doesn't have a better career outlook than Jordan Addison. I would just get out on Jameson Williams. I don't know that much about how value would work in a 6-team start 3 at each position, I think it was, plus more, with a massive tight end premium. But those are places where I see kind of value tweaks to exploit. Drake May, Jameson Williams. Those are the main ones. The main ones. Gibbs, you know I like Achane. You could probably do a similar thing with down tiering from Gibbs to Bucky Irving and getting more value, because he could do the similar role. We'll mark that one done. I know you'll have other ones that you'll submit. JP Killswitch. is in a 12-team Superflex Start 9 PPR half-point tight end premium. jpkillswitch, middle of the board. When I say middle of the board, I just mean keep trade cut value rankings. This is a ranking of who people want on their dynasty team. It's not a great way to predict which team will be good, so we'll take a look at your team. Quarterbacks in a Superflex, perfect example. Tua is ranked as QB 25. He's going to be like a top 12 quarterback in terms of production this year. He's still young enough. His value is insulated. People just worry that if he gets hit, he would retire or miss significant amounts of time. I don't really worry that much about it. I think it's a good bet on plenty of teams. So you're looking to have good quarterback production here. Not a lot of flexibility to make moves with Tua, but you have a ton of flexibility with moves to make Lamar. But he scores a ton of points. So we'll call this a 3. A really good 3. Running back, Swift, Robinson, Spears, Miller. This is like a 2 or a 1. This is not great, but you seem to know that. Swift and Robinson is probably enough to make the playoffs, though, depending on the rest of your team. However, when I moved my eyes to your wide receivers, we see Devonta Smith, Jordan Addison, Golden, Pearsall, Olave, Burden, Harris, Myers. This is kind of this is like a 2 or a 3. You have a ton of parts here, and we'll talk about moves you can make. Tight ends, Mark Andrews, Jcolbo. I like Mark Andrews. I think he's fine for this year. It was probably a 2 or a 3. So what were we saying? 3, 2, 2, 2. But this column has so much value to it. Like, can we get to 9? 12 teams start 9 starters. Can we get there? Lamar and Tua, that's 2 fine starters. Mark Andrews, 3. We can get to 4 and 5, but we probably want to fill a roster spot. And then 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I think we can make this work. We just need to start doing some hefty up-tiering at wide receivers in terms of production. So here's a move that I've seen done that I would just, with this team, take it and offer it. Can you move Devonta Smith and a 3rd and come away with Devontae Adams and a 1st? That's going to give you the same or possibly more production, and then you're cutting off some years of one of your wide receiver spots, but you come away with a 1st to replace them later. It could be a 26 first, a 27 first. I don't particularly care. I just want to stay even on value, or stay even on production, and gain draft pick value. This is a team where I would probably take, like, what could you get for Luther Burden and Jordan Addison? Could you combine those guys and get A.J. Brown? And then we would have a team of Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Golden, Pearsall, Olave. You could do the same move with Trey Harris and Addison. We're looking to up tier here. So if you do a down tier with Adams and get a 1st, you could then, with this team, move a 1st and Addison and get up to that top 8 to 12 range. You have a lot of guys here. You just need to start making some moves in a cycle of picks. So if you could sell Trey Harris before he hits, sell Luther Burden, especially at this wide receiver 34 before he hits, if he hits at all, I'd try to lock in some of that production rather than waiting to see. After saying that, I'll pivot and say, I don't want to make 2nd round picks. When I'm looking at my picks, rookie picks, I'm counting out how many 1st round quarterbacks were taken, how many quarterbacks were taken in the 1st round of the NFL draft, how many wide receivers, how many tight ends, all 1st rounders only is what I care about. And then how many running backs were taken in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. So that number for this year was around 14 players-ish. So the first couple picks in the 2nd round were fine for me. Everything else, I just want to sell. I don't really want to make those picks. So if we can get you Devontae Adams, you could do the same thing with Mike Evans. If we could up tier from Addison and then roll with, that would be like Adams, going up from Addison. If you get to, just for discussion, if we go like Devontae Adams, JSN, Golden, possibly Pearsall, and then we take like Olave. You could start Jacoby Myers this year and have a starting roster. You have enough value to fill this out with producers, We just don't have the producers. So if you could move Brian Robinson in a second and get Derrick Henry and go with Swift and Henry, that's enough for a playoff level team. Those are the moves that I would probably make on this team. If you really, really wanted to make a pivot, you could down tier from Lamar and get value going into other spots. You have probably enough value to compete. You just can't have 40 wide receivers, and you can't have these what-if bets. Luther Burden, Trey Harris. You have enough value to make the playoffs. I'm not really looking to see if we go way up in value, because if Luther Burden and Trey Harris don't do a lot this year, they probably just kind of disappear in their value on your team. Kickers are people too. Radagen, where are you? Dmitrimarty, my boy. 12 team, 1 quarterback, start 9. How are you looking? Middle of the board, but this site is not designed for 1 quarterback leagues. All the value that it calculates is based on a quarterback in a 2 quarterback league. So let's take a look at you position by position. McCarthy and Purdy, this feels like a 2 in a 1 quarterback league, 2 out of 5, because they're probably both going to be like QB1s in a 12-team league. And what is this? Let me know on a live stream what this... Actually, Marty, submit this one on a live stream and let me know. No, scratch that. So I'll tell you what I think of each of these players. It looks like there's some missing spots, or I'm just not seeing enough bench. I don't know if this has kickers and defenses or some other scoring that I'm not thinking about or seeing, or you just don't have a full roster. Is your roster not filled out? Yeah, this guy has more players. You look low, but McCarthy and Purdy's probably like a fine in a 1 quarterback league. It's nothing special. I'd probably look to move on from one of these guys, but I don't know that you're going to get much value out of them in a 1 QB league. Running backs, Bijan, James Cook, Jonathan Brooks. Like, I don't know how Jonathan Brooks stays on a team with this many spots. I probably just need to update the site. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this one. If you have questions about it, let me know on one of the lives and we can pull it up and talk about possible moves, because I've been talking for a while. This is one of my leagues, so I'm not going to review it. Willie Beeman 2.0 end zone. Where is end zone? Bape Man 100. Here we go. 12 team, Superflex, start 10, PPR. When we pull up the value column, I'll just say what I think about it. 100 at the top, 61 at the bottom is a wide spread. And the value column here is really only to help me sort this, to sort these teams in any sort of way. It's not a hard truth, and it's not a great predictor of who will be a good team. Your team looks like it's in a big range of teams that could make the playoffs just based on this column. So I'm going to look at it position by position. We'll talk about where that value is allocated, what your outlook is, and some moves you can make. Quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, Bryce Young, Tua. I like this room. This is the type of room I would like to build. You've got a great option here. Jalen Hurts, a teeny bit undervalued for that column, but that's just QB5 versus QB4. Some people have Burrow ahead of Hurts. I like Hurts ahead of Burrow, but that's just nits and how we pick them. Bryce Young, Tua are both undervalued. These guys can both give you QB1, like top 12-ish production. They may not finish as top 12, but there's going to be a blob of guys from QB 7 to 15 that are all kind of doing the same thing. So if you can get the cheapest version of that, you're looking good. And I think Bryce and Tua are that. Tua has good upside. If he just stays healthy, we're good. So what did I say on this? A really, really good 3. Maybe I said a number, but I'm feeling a really strong 3. Running backs, McCaffrey, Henry, Mason. This is like a weak 3. There's a lot of risk with Christian McCaffrey. There's a general amount of risk with Derrick Henry. These guys could both be gone off of this team after this year, and they could both be league winners this year. Wide receivers, Brian Thomas, Marvin Harrison, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs, Hollywood Brown. This feels like Yeah, like a week 4. You've got 4 really good starting options. We only need to find 10 starters for your team. And then tight end, you have Tyler Warren. Hunter Henry could be a starter for you. Tyler Conklin is a sleeper pick that I like at tight end. The thing with the value column here is you're going to have a lot of it locked up in Tyler Warren. And rookie tight ends just don't, it's not that common that they produce. So in year 1, it's not that common that they produce in year 1. We've had Brock Bowers, we've had Sam Laporta the past 2 years, and then it was about 20 years of that not happening. Kyle Pitts had a good rookie year and then kind of disappeared. So I'm not excited for Tyler Warren on this team. It doesn't feel like a team that can afford to hold that value here. You're on the edge of the playoffs, possibly looking in. I think the way I would get around that with this team is like, can you send a 4th or a 5th and get Ertz from Suck on D's? A team that's in a similar position as you, maybe sees themselves as ascending with guys like RJ Harvey, but could you go get a guy who can hold you through this year? Like Ertz probably produces again this year. Dallas Goedert is a guy that's really cheap to get and can be fine for you. I just don't want to rely on Tyler Warren to be scoring points for me this year. Could you get Kelsey from this guy at the bottom of the board? He doesn't have any future picks. I don't know if he sees himself as rebuilding, but he's got the least value in the league. Could you snag Kelsey and get one more year out of Kelsey and get you through the start of Tyler Warren's career? That's a move I would look to make pretty early. As I scan this looking for you, you are in zone. Other options. You don't have any of your future next year, and it doesn't feel that way. I guess we're just hoping McCaffrey is great. We're hoping Henry's great. If that happens, you're probably doing pretty well in the playoffs. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, I think like McCaffrey and Henry are both probably gone after this year. So we're hoping in that case to get more of a breakout from Brian Thomas. You're hoping for the breakout from Marvin. You're hoping for a breakout from Wilson. Probably losing Mike Evans after this year. Like this feels like a go for it and then a retool. So if it's not working for you this year, we're punting McCaffrey. We're punting Henry. If Tua bounces back, I would look to, and Bryce Young continues his career and you're not winning, I would punt one of those guys gone and start recollecting first-round picks for 2026 to replace these running backs. There's a couple running backs right now before we've played any of the college season that seem like they would be good options for next year, but we're not going to talk about your team as though it's a loser. If you could get anything for Kyle Williams right now to help go in, I'm not really, even with a team that's risky like this one, I'm still not excited to make a bet on a 3rd round NFL draft receiver to become something amazing. So when you get to the midseason, if you can move him for stuff as well. That's what I'm feeling here. You have a chance to go for it this year. If it's not working, we're punting everything old straight to hell to get more firsts. You don't want to sell these guys for seconds unless you're then going to use those seconds to up tier at other players to get 2 firsts. So that would mean sending, if you could only get seconds for Derrick Henry, which I don't think you would. I think during the year you could get a late first from a contender. But say you only got seconds back, I'm then using those seconds to up tier like a second Kyle Williams and Garrett Wilson to come out with multiple firsts kind of stuff. I don't really want to draft with my 2nd round picks. I don't want to sell players for 2nd round picks thinking that I'm going to select players with those 2nd round picks. I want to move that into my lineup for production. Last one, Deontay Johnson. In football. My family should be home soon. So, first thing we see, we'll look at the scoring. 12-team Superflex start, 10 full-point PPR, half-point tight end premium. This looks like you're coming out of a startup or something very close to the start of your league. Because we go from 85 to 76 across the whole league, it's only 10,000 points of keep, trade, cut value swing. This league is wide open. So let's take a look at your team. Look at where you're contending, where and when you're contending, where your value lies, and some moves you can make to get you closer to a championship. This quarterback room is interesting. Bryce Young, Dak Prescott. This could be a great contending team. The value is probably only like a 2 here in this column, but the production is probably like, if Dak is healthy all year, QB6, QB7 is totally in his range of outcomes. That's really good production. And then if Bryce Young is healthy and continues playing like he did at the end of the year, that's like QB12, QB13. Like, he wasn't bad at all at the end of the year. So this feels really good, an efficient use of value. Running backs, Genty, Taylor, Chase Brown. Like, that's 3 good starting options for this year. Jordan Mason, Jaden Blue. Like, Mason could be a good flyer. Jaden Blue is a good flyer. And then 2 really deep dart throws. So this feels like a 3 or a 4, like strong. Receivers, Malik, McConkey, 2 great starts. And then Ayuk, Myers, Royals, Horton. This column starts to feel a little bit different. Like, not the value for Neighbors, great. McConkey, great. Ayuk, if we need to get to 10, this is going to start to be a problem. Jacoby Myers is great, though. And then kind of nothing else. It's possible we get nothing from this. And you have Deontay Johnson, and you're named after him. Tight ends, Mark Andrews. I like Mark Andrews this year. I think people are trying to get out a little bit early. I'm totally fine holding Mark Andrews. So let's count out 10 and get a gauge of how this team feels. It's like Bryce Young, Prescott, Mark Andrews is 3 of your 10 starters. Genty, Taylor, Chase Brown will get you to 6, and that's a good 6. And then 7, 8, 9, and we need something else. Like, we can't trust Ayuk early. We need something else. So where can you get something else? First spots, you could pull another starter right out of Ashton Genty. If you went from Genty to Achane and picked up a first and then paired a first and a second and got A.J. Brown, that's probably more likely to be a championship contender than what we have right here. If you could just get a second for Ayuk and send 2 seconds for Mike Evans, that's more of a championship contender. There's definitely value growth in Ayuk. And you're on the edge here. I'm okay if we take a couple. You have plenty of youth. I'm okay if we take a couple of these picks and we push a little bit harder. Because we have a lot of good production upside here. We have a lot of good production upside here. I don't know that this team can afford the value of Genty before it's happened. I would look to down tier to Achane, Bucky Irving. You already have Chase Brown, but those are the spots I would look to go. Or Omari and Hampton, and see if you can get another first in value and then trade that first with, you might need to be just trading picks to get players. Like, I don't really want to sell Jacoby Myers. I would sell Brandon Ayuk. I'd be open to selling any of these guys. I just don't know that they have that much value to them. So if you could get pick value out of players or just another player out of Genty to fill out your starting 10, I would first target pick value and then use that to buy some veterans. If you can't get that, I'll target extra players, but you're trying to fill out your 10 spots to feel good. Tight end options to do it. Possibly Evan Ingram starting a week for you, but it's just not amazing. I don't feel super confident about that. I'd look to get one more player. Market done. This one not working. 225. We did Willie Beeman in the end zone, so we'll mark that one done. And that's just Marvin's room. So we'll leave this one and we'll come back to it. And that's the end of this video. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. For anyone who watched the whole thing, why?